Yes, this is Power Monday platform, and we use it to share information and to ensure that we are able to learn together and grow as a community, as a society, and as a people, and make life better. Thank you very much, Ben. Now, I'd like to introduce Ben. I'll take this opportunity to introduce Ben. I've known Ben for probably close to 2 years or something, more than that. And he's a very exciting and sharp young man. He recently finished his School of Law. He's a lawyer, but within that period of time, he's done a lot of marvelous things. He's created news in the country and continues to do things that keep some people in this country sleepless nights. And I love his wisdom, his communication. We've shared a few platforms, we've worked with him, and I've known him to be, he's assisted us as per Monday, as Live Your Dream in many other ways, matters related to legal advice. And so we are honored to have him today to share with us about intellectual property right. He's taught me a lot in this field. I'm yet to grasp even a third of what he says. So we want to welcome you, Ben, to take it up and share with us what you've prepared for us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm going to share a screen. I have some PowerPoint presentation. I'm not very familiar with Zoom. If you could direct me on where to share. Okay, I can see it. So when I click, it will be showing, eh?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can always go back, and also go front. Yes, yes. Previous. Just using the arrows. Good.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today to speak about intellectual property rights and how relevant they are in the field of business to MSMEs. I have known Paul for a while. He's one of my mentors, and not a lawyer, but a very good mentor of mine. As I've been introduced, I am a lawyer. I was told that I have about 30 minutes to do the presentation, and so far we have consumed around 5, so I'm left with 25 or less. I'm a bit time conscious, and that one is the agreement we had. So intellectual property is a bit very wide, and for today's session, I will do what I've always called the work of a miniskirt. The work of a miniskirt is long enough to cover the nakedness and short enough to at least communicate something. So in the interest of time, those 25 minutes, I think I should be able to achieve that. Otherwise, this is a very wide area. So the topic, cashing in on hidden gold. It has been realized that today in several countries, not only in Kenya, we have a lot of untapped potential in the areas of intellectual property. So what is that intellectual property? These are properties that you cannot touch. They exist, but you cannot touch them. And in the time that we're going to talk here, I'm going to cover 7 things, and briefly so. And I'll be doing that by way of examples so that we are able to get the concept. I believe I'm not in a class of lawyers, so just to show you what's going on in terms of the practical bit of it. So what I've done is introduction. I will tell you about protection of IP rights. When I say IP, it's the short form for intellectual property. I will tell you about trade secrets. And under that, I will be telling you about what are these that are usually classified as trade secrets. How do you respond to their leakage when your trade secrets are leaked out? And how can you prevent that leakage? And even think about its cure. I will tell you about how you can protect yourself against staff leaving your company. And after that, I'll cover intellectual property commercialization. If time will allow, I will tell you a bit about negotiating licensing, the benefits of licensing, and the associated risks with that licensing. Technology transfers, I also intend to cover that. And after that, I'll be ready to take any questions and answer them. I have spoken in such forums before, and I've realized that the best session is the question and answer. And that is when learning really happens. And only students or people who have gotten anything or who have engaged with the content are able to answer and ask questions. So I'll try as much as possible to create time for the Q&A. So what are intellectual properties, or what is intellectual property? Intellectual property, like I said, are those creations that we are not able to touch them. They come from our minds. I don't know whether we have Muslims here. I beg to use a biblical example. If you go to the book of Genesis, we are told that in the beginning there was God, and God created the earth. The earth was formless and had nothing in it. Then God did his creation, and within 7 days, something was already there on earth. The story continues. God tells people that, man, now you have dominion on earth. Go and create earth. So people created very many things. But at the beginning, there was land. On that land, then we had agriculture going on very well. So these men went and introduced things like tools. People who have read a bit of history, we talk about years later, we had things like agrarian revolution, all those revolutions that now brought up things. All these things, I believe they were giving form to earth. That's so what God did, whatever God did was his intellect, a creation of his own mind. He said, this is how I want a human being to look like, this is how a dog will look like, and this will be a cat. There will be small cats and big cats. So that is intellectual property. Nobody can take it away from you. It is yours and it's new. I will use another example. There are hundreds of countries in the whole world. We talk about around 55. Some people say we are 56 in Africa. All those countries do not share a name. Each country has its own name. Now, we have a country called Kenya. We have another one called Uganda. In that country, there are very many things. So once you identify Kenya by its name, there are several other things you can use to identify Kenya. What is it that when you see, you know we are talking about Kenya here. Some people say we talk about the KICC, that when you see it anywhere in the maps, you know very well this is Kenya. Others have added the pension towers into the map. And they're saying, look, if you see this image, we are talking about Kenya. And there are also very many things. How people speak in that country, how people behave, how people do even their politics. All those are creations that are unique to that particular country. If you go to Uganda, its name is unique. And then how they do their own things will also be unique. What I'm trying to tell you is the concept of uniqueness in intellectual property. So when we have that protection in terms of nobody is able to copy your name. Assume where we had anybody organizing a coup, like several coups we hear in Africa, then somebody, after they do that, they call that country Kenya. So after they do the coup, they call it, this is now Kenya, or this is now Uganda. So we end up with having a lot of countries named the same name. When I was invited to speak here, I was told that I'm coming to talk about in the Power Monday. When I Googled Power Monday, I found more than 20 Power Monday out there. So that tells you the concept of coping and how it blurs a solid thing that would exist. So when you hear somebody copying something, there are three things. One, it must be something of value. Nobody copies a bad thing, so it must be a good thing. Secondly, it's a bit of a form of laziness. Of course, somebody has seen value in it, but they don't want to do anything to create their own. So they do the laziness, or they become lazy and simply copy. So that is a bit of the background of what intellectual property is, and how it is relevant in terms of business. Now, intellectual property is very wide, and for example, the examples I've given you, I've given you the name of Kenya, and as a brand. So we have intellectual property that protects brand, and those ones we call them trademarks. Just like the name says, a mark. You can be a trade, you can be a service. So, for example, if you are Power Monday, you are doing a service, maybe a professional service of advising MSMEs on how to set up their businesses. That is a service. So Power Monday becomes a mark. So if you have something that identifies you, like I can see here, you have some L, some Y, some D written in a particular way, maybe that is unique to you, that becomes a mark. So what is it? Is it a trademark? Is it a service mark? We have another facet called copyright. Copyright, these are usually things which are capable of being copied. I want you to look at how the names were crafted. So we are talking about written work. We are talking about artistic work. We are talking about um, um, how would I explain? Anything capable of being copied, usually artistic and literary. So when somebody writes a poem, that's a copyright. When somebody writes a song, when somebody composes a music, when an artist draws those nice things they do, those things, they fall under copyright. We also have what is called patents. Patents, these are now the inventions. When God created the earth, in the whole of the Bible, we don't have stories of people flying. Otherwise, if we had things like the aeroplanes at the time of Moses and Aaron, probably they would be flying when they were even doing all those stuff. Now, man created all that, and that creation is now what we call patent. These are inventions, which give us a new thing. So in terms of, I will not go into details of what amounts to an invention so that we talk about what is patent, but I will tell you that we have several categories. We have also the categories, I would classify them as registrable and non-registrable. So registrable are those, like I've said, we talk about copyright, trademark, patents. These are things that we are able to register. And the registration happens um, per country and regionally and even globally. I'll talk about that in the next few minutes. So we also have non-registrable properties. Like I said, what is intellectual property? It is creation of your mind. So we have trade secrets. How do you do your business? What are the secrets? What makes you going? And those ones you may not be able to register them, because if you register them, then it no longer becomes a secret. So I look at something like Coca-Cola and how they make their thing. How will you register that? Once you register, it means that everybody knows about it. And maybe before I now go to what we need to talk about, I want to explain to you the concept of intellectual property using or drawing an analogy from the concept of land that we all know. Land has been the most popular asset uh, until now. So what happens with the land is that in the beginning, yes, God gave it to men. Then people, I don't know how people inherited portions of that land until today. So there's a place where either you acquired it through inheritance, or you bought it, or you got it as a gift. So once you get land, you'll know that you need to register it under your name. What happens is that when you register it under your name, you let third parties. Third parties are people who are not you or the person who sold it to you. So they are aware that this land belongs to you. So it is under your own name. When anything is under your own name, you're telling third parties or the whole earth that, look, this is mine. So that is also the same thing with any other property that you can have. Just like a vehicle, you buy a vehicle, you are able to register it under your own name. You buy maybe a bed in your house, you are able to have it and show that this is my bed. Then that is the same thing with the intellectual property. You are able to register and say, this creation, it is mine. This music, it is mine. This book, it is mine. This poem, it is mine. So that when somebody is reproducing it, then they are able to either give you credit or give you some monetary gain or even seek your permission if they want to use it at all. So this is just like any other property. And I say that in the next few days, few years, this is going to be the biggest investment that somebody can ever have. For example, you go to Nairobi today, there's going to be a time where much as you may have the money to buy the land, it may not accommodate everybody, but there will be no time that there will somebody will be able to exhaust intellectual property. So I've said a bit about that. So how is it relevant for you to know about your intellectual property rights and how to protect them? There are four things. Number one, it will help you protect your innovations and everything that you've created that identifies you. I've given an example of live your dream. I want to give an example of Toyota. When you hear about Toyota, you know this is a vehicle manufacturing company. When you hear about Isuzu, that is a brand. It has created a name. When you hear about Adidas, that's a brand. So it enables you to protect that your brand and identify with it. And once you've done that protection, it prevents now competitors from copying. So nobody's going to call themselves Kenya. Nobody's going to call themselves Adidas. Adidas remains one in the country so that they're able to compete. And the issue of intellectual property is actually not just aloof in the air. This is embedded in the Constitution of Kenya, for example. We talk about consumer protection. We talk about inventions and scientific inventions, which are constitutional rights and are protected under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Now, when your customers, even your target customers, are confused about things that are existing, like today I told you I was coming here, I was looking for Power Monday. I found more than 10 Power Mondays. So people are confused. But if you go there looking for Adidas, you will only find one Adidas. You will only find one iPhone. You'll only find one Samsung. And that is what we call brand identity. And it now protects people from copying whatever you're doing. It could be something big, it could be something small, and everything big began small. So the third thing protection gives you is that it will now enable you to use it, just like you could use land as collateral to even get loans from the bank. If you're able to tell people that, look, this is my property, how will you convince them? It is registered. So we are able to know that nobody is going to copy this, and we are able to show, or there are ways you can show what you are worth through valuation. There are people who do intellectual property valuation, and they're able to give you the worth of your property in terms of those intangible assets. So in terms of loans or getting loans from the bank, yes, you can use intellectual property that you have. Then number four, I would talk about negotiations. You can be more appealing to people who want to invest, for example, in a country. Maybe you are a pharmaceutical company in Kenya, you do your business and somebody has another in India and they want to maybe distribute some properties in Kenya. You become now appealing because people are able to identify with you, or they want to tap into the brand that you already have if you're able to show how much or the worth that you have in terms of that identity. So these are just some of the benefits that you can have once you protect your intellectual property rights. I'll talk about how do we get to that protection. So protection, like I told you, when dealing with registrable intellectual property, we talk about copyright, patents, and trademarks largely. And you do it by way of registration. I will tell you what happens in Kenya and I will tell you what happens abroad. So protection can start globally, or protection can start domestically and then grow to globally. So I will begin by saying that intellectual property is how would I say, is domestic. We talk about the concept of territoriality, which simply says we will always be talking about your protection in that particular jurisdiction. So if you have registered for protection of trademark, we can only protect you in Kenya. If you want to be protected in Uganda, you will go to Uganda and protect your brand there. You want to do it in Nigeria, you do that. So you may want to go. There are those that you can do country to country. There are those that you can do through the Africa Intellectual Property. I mean, the RIPO. There are those that you can do at the world intellectual property level. So those are some of the nuances that you may now need to know about. So protection will always begin from the date of filing of that protection. There is a lot that goes into it. We have to confirm that it is genuine. So there will be a search to confirm, okay, this image that you're seeking to protect, is it genuine? Is it new? Is it unique? Does it exist? Are you copying? And once that is guaranteed or has been ascertained, then you are able to get protection. So if you're from Kenya, we talk about the KIPI, you will go and do your registration there. If you're in another country, you will go to that particular office. There must be a national office that deals with all that. So protection that you will be accorded lasts for a specific period. It does not last forever based on what you are seeking to protect. So for example, trademark will always last for a maximum of 10 years. If you protect a mark, it will last for 10 years maximum, then with the probability of renewal. And for you to renew, you have to show that it is under use, and you cannot just protect a mark, then you're not using it. Those are some of the things, some of the details that you may want to know. When you talk about patents, these are inventions. When you talk about patent, it must be something very new, like somebody coming up with let me give you an example of during COVID. We saw a lot of things coming up during COVID. Some people came with even these machines that you could step. You use our hands and the feet and the foot to wash your hands somehow. Those were creations of the mind, something totally very new and nobody has seen before. That becomes a patent. How do you protect it? And the protection that you can be given, it must be 20, I mean, a maximum of 20 years with no option of renewal, actually. We have things like industrial designs, and this one now will be in the field of people who do, I mean, the engineers. These are things which are now applicable to them. So there are very many categories of intellectual property that you can seek to protect, and there are things and rules that apply. So, I mean, copyright, you will get protection until you die. And after that, some countries talk about 50 years after your death, it will still be under your name. Then after that, it expires with no option of renewal. There are other countries which gives 70 years after death. So that one will now be different based on your country. So like I told you, we have the filing at the domestic level, we have the filing at regional level and the global level. So if you file in Kenya, for example, you're protected in Kenya. If you want to go global, you will need to do that at the global stage. Why do we talk about that? You are going to see how you can then use your IP rights to leverage on your profits. So for example, you may want to be exporting your services or exporting your goods, and what you're riding on is your brand. Then you start worrying about how are you going to protect your brand in that country. So some of these things you may begin domestically and later go global, or some of the people would want to begin global and get the protection once and for all. So I want to major on unregisterable IP rights, a very big thing which I would take the whole day talking about. So I want to talk about trade secrets. And here is where most MSMEs fall. Now, trade secrets are those things that are unique to you, things that you know, that makes your business your own business. I usually say that there is some brain power that is involved in any type of business. There's some brain power involved. So anybody with a business cannot say that they don't have any intellectual property rights. For example, you see, let me give an example of Mama Mboga. We have very many Mama Mbogas everywhere. But if you look at how they do their business, there are those people who they are able to retain in terms of customers. There's this person who will always go to this particular lady for their mboga, and they don't go to another one. Yet they're in the same place. They have some secret of doing their own thing. That secret is what we call a trade secret. It is how you conduct your trade. I want to give that example as a basic one. So there is really no way you can register that, because at the moment of registering it, you're basically telling us, so it no longer becomes a secret. And also, there is no specific law that protects trade secrets. We in Kenya will now start talking about the constitution that talks about consumer protection. We're able to make sure that your customers are protected. We talk about the national values under Article 10, which includes equity, principles of equity. We talk about torts. So these are some of the general things that will now accord you protection when your trade secrets have been leaked or have been infringed. So there's no way of really registering it, but you can actually protect yourself from them. And most MSMEs, here is where you fall. Here is where you fall, because you will have you're still struggling. You want to board somebody to do something, maybe as your IT expert. In the next few days, they are gone. They have gone with all your secrets, how you conducted your business, your customer list, your technical information, business ideas. And that's how you then face very strict competition. So what are the examples of trade secrets? I will give you four. Business information. I don't know what kind of businesses you people do, but some of the general things that people usually have as business information include a list of customers, who their suppliers are, their contact details, what they prefer, and all the databases that they have, plus the agreements that they have had before. So once somebody is able to acquire this, somebody is able to acquire a supplier, they will be able to tell, okay, this is why this person is able to sell at this particular amount of money or discounted price, and they will be able to approach a supplier and give you very strict competition. If somebody is able to have your customer list, you can imagine what they can do with it. Another category is strategic information. How do you do your marketing? What is the strategy that you're using in your company? How do you do your after sales services? Who does your market surveys, and where do you do the reports? If somebody is able to get this, then they run away and they're able to compete you seriously. You have technical information based on your business, whether you are in the technology part of it, whether you're in the service industry. There are those technical information that you always have. Let's look at the example of manufacturing. Let's say you manufacture pesticides, and somebody is able to have all that information that you get from the research. Remember, for you to do a research, you've launched it, you've invested in it. Then, for example, an employee is simply able to take that information and share it with your adversaries, the business adversaries or competitors, the proper language. Another thing that becomes a trade secret is your financial information. How do you do your pricing? How do you do your forecast in terms of the financial forecast? How do you conduct your sales? And all that is very rich information that nobody should get from your company. Then I will give you two examples. I will give the example of Java. If you go to Java and order for mojito, for example, it is only that mojito, you'll only get it from Java. And how they prepare it will be different from how somebody prepares it at any other place. So you may go to the CJs and ask them, okay, I want to have a virgin mojito. You'll get the mojito, but probably the taste will not be the same as the Java's mojito. Look at Coca-Cola, for example. Imagine if we had the recipe that Coca-Cola uses. How many people would be making Coca-Cola today, even manually? So that information that is very unique to you, you don't need to share it with anybody. And MSMEs, here is where most of your information, your business information, your strategic information and technical information. This one is what you should protect most, because MSMEs usually actually they face the highest number of, I would call it brain drain, where people are coming in, going out, coming in, going out. 1 week you have a secretary, the other week there's a new one. Somebody, your IT guy, Mekosana, and all that. So you must be very cautious with your trade secrets. And anytime it has ceased to be a secret, it will be used against you. So how do you respond to leakages when it has leaked? Your trade secret has leaked out there. How do you do? We have two options. Number one, in terms of leakage, you can approach court to protect its use, and that protection can be temporary or it can be permanent. So if you're able to show that, look, this is my intellectual property right and it should not be infringed, then court will give a permanent injunction. You can also claim damages if you're able to show how you have lost in terms of the infringement. If you're able to tell us, look, this person took my recipe, I'm the person who prepares this mokimo in this particular way. I prepare it for guests who are coming for this, maybe in a particular event. So somebody has used that and have prepared and they have been able to sell. If you're able to quantify, you'll get the damages. How have you lost? And then you can also get a permanent injunction. But two things you have to prove. Number one, that the person who acquired your trade secrets acquired it illegally or in an abusive way. So it must have been acquired and it must have been used against you in an abusive and an illegal way. So that is how you can respond to the leakage. Now, talking about cure and prevention, then you must now take measures. Anytime you're dealing in your company, you must be very cautious and aware of the threats that may come your way in terms of leakages. So you must know what information you need to expose and how do you expose it? Where do you expose that information? Information is usually in terms of recording and the storage. Who can access it? Who can store it and where? We talk about, today we talk about a lot of information being shared into the digital space. What do you tell people? Are your employees aware of what they should not even post in the website? You may find somebody by mistake, they've even posted, somebody may even go there and start posting your customers and the list itself, either by mistake or knowingly. So you must know what should not be exposed and why. Then in terms of protected passwords, people in the IT or even in any other platform or any other space, if you have digitized your things, who has the passwords and which passwords are you talking about? Are there any protocols in place for the production and copying of any material that you consider sensitive? So these are some of the things you may want to have. So there is no one way of doing it. The ways will always be different based on the nature of your business and how that trade operates. So you will be able to know this is the information that is sensitive to me, and this is the information that I should not expose as it may be used against me. So how do you protect yourself in terms of staff leaving your company? It is very common, especially like I said, with the MSMEs or anybody starting a small business, and even in big companies, you will have employees come and go, and some of them are actually facing poaching. Some people get poached, some people get lured to go and take a particular goods pay, and they are able to drain your company. Some people do it in a hostile manner so that they're able to gain from you. So the effects of an employee leaving your company is not light. Anytime you find somebody leaving your company, there's the brain drain, there's all the acquired information that they have from you, if it is sensitive data, any know-how, any specific details that can be used against you. So anytime you find an employee leaving your company, just know that they have left with a part of you, based on the nature of your business and what role they were occupying in your company or organization. So there's little you can do in terms of preventing people from leaving your organization. But if you know what your unique or what is unique to you in terms of your secrets, then you are able to protect yourself through ways that I'm just about to show you now. Talking about how do you then do that protection? Some people advocate for having a code of conduct that spells out what is it that happens in terms of our engagement with you in our company. What are you allowed to do? What are you allowed not to touch? What is the evidence that you have touched this? So that anytime we are able to, at any given time, we're able to show that, look, this information you acquired it from me at this particular date, and this is why and how. So again, it will depend with the nature of that business and how it is conducted. Those circumstances will always be different. What position is this employee occupying in your space? And what information really are they accessing? So largely, we have always used what we call non-disclosure agreements. So some non-disclosure agreements are very broad and they capture everything to do with code of conduct, confidentiality, non-compete, things to do with poaching clauses. Some people do them individually. Some people have a code of conduct that is separate from non-compete agreements. Some people have non-disclosure agreements. And some people have just one. Either way, all of them are will always serve the purpose, because what we want is an agreement or a contract that is able to be enforced legally in case of any breaches. So there is what we call non-disclosure agreements. Non-disclosure agreements will always protect you in terms of your trade secrets and the confidentiality around your business. There are very many things you have to take note of in terms of non-disclosure agreements. Number one, you must show that that information is actually, you must define the information you're disclosing. So you don't just say that, do not expose anything in this business. You have to show that this is what we are giving you and do not expose it. You have to show that, you have to define what is that information that is confidential just to you. So that in terms of breach, or in at the time of breach, we are able to tell that this is what you got from us, we gave it to you, and this is exactly the same thing that you employed elsewhere, and it is now being used against us. I've talked about non-compete agreements. Some people usually talk about how are you able to do your business. Let me give an example of the famous legal profession. Let me say I work with the firm of Otieno and Otieno Company Advocates at the Anniversary Tower, 17th floor. I have worked there for 3 years, and I was trusted there as an associate. I met clients, I dealt with their cases. Then one day I wake up in the morning and I say, look, I'm now starting my own firm, and I thank you for the opportunity that you gave me. So I move and go to the first floor, Anniversary Towers, and now I'm doing my business there. Now, when I was in the firm of Otieno and Otieno Advocates, I made very many relationships with the clients of that in that firm. I handled their files, they trusted me. So the very moment I begin my own firm, they want to transfer their files. They want to follow me and all that. But now look, I've come from the 17th floor, I've gone to the first floor, the same building. Some people may want to look at the possibility of saying, look, once you break ties, maybe for a period of at least 3 years, you may not be able to set up business near me for a period of 5 years, for a period of 3 years. In terms of geographical location, it must be practicable. So these things will always be agreements. So you must have the end at the beginning. Anytime you are onboarding an employee, you must know how are they able to compete with you when they exit. And you must also have something that is equitable. You don't just have agreements that maybe may not make sense. So that is an example that I would give you. So there's a lot, like I told you, there's a lot that we can talk about in terms of intellectual property, especially under trade secrets, which I believe is the main thing for MSMEs. Now, I want to talk about IP commercialization and licensing. And I'm going to talk about it in the perspective of how, just like land, which we are able to rent, we are able, or we can also rent out our intellectual property rights. I want to give you an example of, right now I'm at a particular building and I'm occupying a room. This room, I am only able to occupy it alone. And once I've occupied it, then the landlord cannot give it out to another person. However, intellectual property, for example, I will give you Live Your Dream. Let's say Live Your Dream company. You have your logo and you are able to establish that this is our brand. These are the people that associate with us. Let me give a popular example. Let me talk about Toyota. So we have Toyota saying that, look, we want to give you our brand and use it to market our products in your jurisdiction or in your territory or in Kenya. We are in Japan. We want you to do this in Kenya. So they rent it out. Nothing prevents them from renting it out to another person in Nigeria, to another person in India, to another person in Japan, in the same country, Japan, or in the US. So you are able to rent it out to as many people as possible at one given moment. But again, that will be based on the circumstances around the business, because there are those who may want exclusive rights and those that may want non-exclusive, based on what we're talking about and the territorial issues. So when we're dealing with licensing, and licensing, again, we look at all the things we've talked about. We were talking about trademarks. We're talking about copyright. We're talking about industrial designs. We're talking about patent. If you give out your license, what you deal with here is an agreement. It's just a one-on-one agreement with another person. Look, this is what I want you to do, and this is the extent that I'm allowing you to use my rights. Just like you license, I mean, like you lease out your land. You're saying, this is my land, you have it for 5 years. After 5 years, we are done. That is how it happens. So the tool that will be used there is called a licensing agreement, and it will contain some of the, what it should contain now, a lawyer should be able to advise. And like I said, based on the circumstances and nature of the business or transaction involved. Now, what I want to say is, like, in terms of profitability, imagine where you have only listed this office only to me. Nobody else can come in. But if you are able to lease your intellectual property to more than 10 persons. Remember, it is one, but you're leasing out, I'll call it renting out that property to as many people as possible. So it's a very big or huge potential that businesses will tap into. If you have something tangible, or tangible here, I mean valuable IP rights or portfolio. So in terms of those agreements, how those agreements are done, some of them are exclusive, some of them are non-exclusive. I've hinted on that. So they will take those forms based on what we are dealing with at that particular time. So how do you earn from it? Some people negotiate in terms of getting royalties. From time to time, they're given some royalties. Some people agree to have a lump sum, maybe a one-time payment, or some people have a one-time payment, then royalties to follow. So it will always depend on what's going on. Then we have what is called cross-licensing. You may agree that I want to use these logos that I'm seeing here. I can see Live Your Dream. I can see Absa Bank. I can see ASEC. Now, you can agree that I'm giving you my Live Your Dream brand. You can use it, and this is the benefit it's going to give you. Now, in exchange, let me also have yours. So there, if you are able to do it, we call it cross-licensing. You have simply exchanged. You have simply exchanged, just like you could exchange your office. Then we have things that now goes into these agreements. How different is licensing from assignment? How different is licensing from distribution agreement? So these are things which now a lawyer will be able to help you determine, and so that you're able to know what we are dealing with at any given time. So some of them deal with, for example, in licensing and distribution. In distribution, we talk about permission. Toyota, I've given you permission to sell using my brand. Okay, so it is just mere permission. There's no rights of use. I've only given you permission. And this is the same way the analogy I'm using, analogy of land. We talk about land in terms of permission, where you just allowed somebody to use your office for a particular day. Then there is that one where you've given them their rights, which is exclusive. They can't come into that office for a particular number of years. You have leased the building, for example. So there is a lot that goes into it. Once you know and you have identified your intellectual property rights, you are able to negotiate with them, and you are able to now do all these sorts of agreements. Are you licensing? Are you assigning? Are you into distributorship and all that? So how can you then benefit as a small business, as a medium enterprise? How are you able to benefit? You are able to do what I call market expansion. And when I began, I talked about the possibility of even venturing into exportation of a service or of goods. So you are able to expand your market very well because you are using whatever networks. I mean, you can partner even with another organization in another country, or even in Kenya. We have counties today, we have regions today. Kenya is a bit big. So how are you able to come together as MSMEs to do your business? So if you have something tangible that identifies you and promotes you, then you are able to do business. Again, let me use the example of logos I'm seeing here. I'm seeing Live Your Dream, I'm seeing ABSA, I'm seeing ICT Gurus. So let me say that we have the fans of ICT Gurus. You are very sure that if we have ICT Gurus as somebody fronted for, I mean, featured in a particular advertisement, then there are people who will subscribe to that. Then somebody is also saying that, okay, as ABSA, we are sure that if you have us, we are going to attract this particular amount of people. Then ASEC, we are going to have this particular amount of people. So you come together and do business because you're bringing all these people together and you are able to minimize in terms of costs and very many things. So you can be able to expand your market and ease how you do your business once you're able to value your IP and know what your portfolio really is. You can use IP to generate revenue without using a lot of money, especially in the distribution field. You want to sell, let me say, again, I will give another example, the example of Toyota. Toyota manufactures their vehicles in Japan. They want to have them sold in Kenya. So imagine where Toyota would be coming to Kenya to do that manufacturing in Kenya so that they are able to sell those things in Kenya. So what Toyota does is to give their brand and that identity that people have associated with globally, then it now comes into those particular jurisdictions across the world. So it cuts on a lot of costs because you are coming to a business that already exists. What you've given them is just opportunity to market you. So it also helps you to mitigate a lot of financial risks that are associated with the distribution and uncertainties, and even the production. So that ties with what I've talked about revenue generation. So everything good, some people say that everything good will always have the disadvantages that comes with. Now, when you have, for example, leased or licensed your IP rights, to some extent, you may have lost the control. Anybody can maybe deal with your properties in a manner that will then damage your brand, especially if you do not do very well in terms of your agreements. You have a lot of contractual risks if your agreement is not well structured, and it will now lead to disputes, questions of infringements, and this may affect whichever side. So you may want to have a very good IP lawyer who will be able to forecast the probable issues in terms of the nature and circumstances of the transaction is involved. Competitive risks are also there. If you have not managed your licensing well, for example, it can create opportunity for competitors to then misuse the rights that you've accorded them. So, like I began saying, there are a lot to talk about in intellectual property rights and how these things can be used in the IP world and in the business that you people do. I beg to stop there in the interest of time. I have not been able to tell you about technology transfers, which is another dominant thing. Today we are talking about, I saw an invention of somebody which is about management. How do you assign your work online? How do you manage your projects in a digital way? So if that example, for example, somebody gives you that technology to use it, they've not given you the patent, they're not given you anything beyond the ability to use it, but they still retain it and you are able to do your business and you give them that technology. I want to give you just an example, just in the interest of those who came from the technology part of it. We have the software as a service platform transfers. It's a very big and upcoming company in Kenya, I mean enterprise in Kenya, where we have these people developing these SaaS. Now, I'll give an example of that organization in Kenya that develops those comprehensive system that does CRM. Now, if you have that customer relationship management, and that is what you have as a service, you want to do a transfer agreement. How do you do it? So that transfer, the company that has made it, or the organization, or the individual, will now enter into an agreement. This agreement, we call it technology transfer, with maybe a company elsewhere. It could be a global company in another country. Then you simply come together and say, what I'm giving you is this software, and you are able to use it. Now, what is the deal in that circumstance? So the agreement will now involve the licensing. So you are saying, I'm giving you how the platform works and the interfaces, the algorithms. I'm able to give you this and how to incorporate all that. So how do you get your money? Where is the cash point? So those people will now gain access to your system or your platform, and they're able to do their businesses and do their things. You as the organization that did this, you get your benefits, the fees from the licensing, the royalties that accrue based on how you have structured your agreement. So there are a lot of contracts that are involved in these transactions under intellectual properties. And I think I've been able to complete what I prepared for you. And we began late, and let me end it there for
Yes.
Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think every one of us would have loved to have even more of this. And just to tell the participants that on Friday at the dinner, we will have Ben. So you can always ask more pertinent questions and you will be answered. There are a few questions that have come, three of them from Dr. Melvin and one from Okoth Msingiro. So Dr. Melvin's first question, we may try to answer all of them. I'll just read all of them together. Maybe some are related or some can be combined. Do you have a rough estimate of the number of and the annual demand for process patent registration in Kenya? Do you have? I've also put them on your chat for WhatsApp. Number two is, if an employee uses the trade secret of your supplier or suppliers to start a copycat business, and deals with the same suppliers that have their the same suppliers they have infringed on your intellectual property right. And can you claim damages from the courts? I think this one was answered during the presentation when your employees pick your trade information and trade with them if people are able to prove, but you will mention something. Then the value of traditional medicine in the Kenyan marketplace, such as this IPR, intellectual property right, is being peddled to foreign pharmaceutical companies, perhaps because we do not trust Kipi or Aripo enough. What's your take on this? And those are from Melvin, and then one from Okoth Msingiro is, how does the government encourage the MSMEs to protect their businesses through the trade secrets as a way of fostering innovations and inventions? what measures can the government take to make this known, or awareness, to create awareness and encourage young entrepreneurs as a way of increasing their profitability? I think that is, those are the ones that are there. Maybe you can summarize them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start with the last question from Okoth. How can the government chip in to assist MSMEs? Number one, just like I began by saying that trade secrets are not registrable. You cannot register them because if you go registering, then you have notified the whole world about them. So we know about them. It's no longer secret. So you cannot register. However, awareness is necessary. And that awareness is what will tell you this is your right, or this could be your intellectual property right, and you can protect it. Those protections are not registrable. You only do it by way of your agreements, how you are able to forecast as you onboard your companies, and how you are able to do your employment agreements and contracts with your people. So basically, you just need to do what exactly you've done today by joining such platforms. So you are able to gain a lot of knowledge, and it's also a bit of protecting yourself. So yes, government can do very little because there's no way they would protect your trade secrets. It's up to you to know which secrets you have and how to protect them. And the best way is to protect them through contracts and written formats. Yeah. I would go to the value of traditional medicine and the exploitation that goes around it. Yeah, this is a very interesting question. Now, intellectual property is that which is unique to you. So if somebody is able to show us that this is medicine that I've come up with, and this is the particular disease that it treats, and somebody in the global space comes to you telling you that we need to tap into your knowledge, this that you know, we want to use it to manufacture. That's a business. It's their business. So how government comes involved is it's a question of contracts. If the government would want to deal with the person who is claiming that they have some particular special knowledge, then it will be their contract. If there's a multinational organization that is able to convince this person to give them the indigenous knowledge, then it is about your contract. If you have your shoes, you sell it to any person you wish. If you have your land, you sell it to any person you wish. And actually, I usually say that intellectual property is the only property that government cannot acquire compulsorily. However, things like land, government can simply say that we are now taking the whole of Kajiado, and that is now a no-go zone for anybody. If you have land there, we are buying it. But nobody can tell you that we are, as government of Kenya, we are collecting all the indigenous medical knowledge. So anybody with an indigenous medical knowledge, that is now property of government. That is impossible. So you can trade with anybody. It's about trade. It's about what you know, and you choose who you want to sell to. The other question was about the annual demand for, was it annual demand for registration?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Do you have a rough
Annual
estimate
demand.
of the annual number and demand for process patent registration in Kenya? No, I do not have the statistics, but today, very many people are aware of issues to do with intellectual property rights, and very many people are doing the registration. Very many people, and not even the registration alone. We also have what we call the movable property, movable property assets Act of 2017 in Kenya. Let me confirm the exact citation, which allows people now to even use intellectual property as collateral. You are able to come and register that, look, this is my patent. I want you as Equity Bank to give me this amount of loan. This is the collateral. Have these rights so that as soon as I complete your payments, you are able to give me back my rights. So yes, there's a very big uptake in terms of awareness, and people are doing their registration. I do not have the statistics. I don't work for the government, so I don't have the statistics. The next question was around that one I've answered. The employee uses trade secrets of your supplier to start a copycat. Yeah, so that one is if you are able, like I said, you have to show two things: that the information was acquired and it was acquired illegally And if that acquisition was illegal, then yes, you are able to show and you are able to claim two things. You are able to claim a permanent or a temporary injunction as the case proceeds. After you're done with the case, if it is proven that it was an illegal thing, then they are able to be prevented from doing anything that they were doing permanently. And if you have lost any revenue based on that infringement, then you're able to get your damages, and you'll get that award from court. And it must not be from court. You are even able to negotiate in terms of alternative dispute resolution. You can do mediation, you can do arbitration, but whichever method you take, yes, you are able to protect yourself and get returns from the ill profits that they might have made. I think I've answered all of them.
Yeah, I think so too. And because we are already 10 minutes past the time we always end at 8:15, I'd like us to officially bring this to a conclusion, and then you can stay behind for people who want to ask further questions so that they can ask. But we also encourage members to come for the meet and greet, to attend the dinner, and then we will be able to have more and more discussions and around the same. There are a few other questions that came in.
Excuse me, Paul.
Yes?
Just a second before Christine comes in. The Act of Parliament I was citing is called the Movable Property Security Rights Act of 2017, which I was saying allows for using
Intellectual property as a collateral.
movable properties as collateral. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you very much. Yes, I'd like to invite Edna to say a word or an announcement. I don't see Antonia or these other people, and then we can do a brief prayer, and then we can open for that. Those are the questions.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all well and can hear me. So our event is this week, finally, on Friday from 5 p.m. We are looking forward to seeing all of you. As Paul has mentioned here, it is a matter of all the Power Mondays. So let's come, share, learn, interact. You never know who is going to be your plug for 2024, who is going to be the missing link in your business or in your professional life. So as we had mentioned prior, we have a lot in store for you. We have panelist discussions. We have keynote speaker who will be talking about the current business environment and also the strategies that you can use to mitigate the various risks that the current environment poses to your life. We have networking opportunities. You'll be able to mix freely with people from these development organizations like GIZ. We have industry experts. We have ABSA coming in. We have Hope coming in to cover the event. We have investment companies who will also be talking about the investment strategies that you can put in place. We have academia just to also talk about, what is it that they are doing in this space of entrepreneurship, and so much in store for you, including other enterprise support organizations, because these are the people who support your business in the long run to access finance, to other resources that you need in your business. So other than all this, there's also the sumptuous dinner that we have for you. It's a great way to end the year, a great way to, take some time and just reflect and listen to people so that you can also incorporate all this information in your planning for New Year. So I can't speak enough for this. I may speak the whole day just talking about what we have planned for you. Do not miss. To register is just 2,500 shillings. And please take advantage because we are now seeing many people registering towards the date, so you don't want to be locked out. Pay bill is 247,247, account number 666,924, and that is M-Pesa. And as our MC indicated, you just do that and then you put your pin and you'll be done. Yeah, na pin yako ni siri yako. Yeah, so karibuni nyote or wote, and looking forward to seeing all of you during the dinner.